Hello, this is What's Wrong with My Picture, a video series where I review a work of photographers who are in the beginning of their career. And today's review is going to be portrait test shoot by Jerome. Since this is a portrait test shoot, I specifically asked Jerome to give me the files that are not edited yet. So don't judge any post-production or any lighting corrections or anything like that. The files look quite raw, but we are going to focus here on the lighting and on the model direction. So let's have a look. So this first shot, we can see that the model sits on possibly a chair at the table, quite close to the background, and we see the background details. Like I said, there's no retouching done, but I have already several concerns here. Even though we know that it's going to be some post-production done to it, I still think that this shadow is way too active, meaning there's a huge presence of it in the shot, so it might look distracting. And the light is quite too harsh on the model. So you can see a hard edge shadow here. You can see quite shiny highlights. I think that in general, the problem is that the model is very close to the background. That's why the shadow is so intense and so big and so close to the model as well. And so the background is also lit quite brightly by this light, and it's again also active, as the shadow is too active and it's too distracting. So I would rather see, since the model is wearing white, I would rather see a nice contrast between her clothes and the background with this sort of hard light. You have to keep in mind that if you're using a hard light, it's going to be a dramatic type of portrait. So either you're going for dramatic kind of portrait with a completely blown out sort of background, blown out skin, like Jorgen Teller's, for example, work, when it's like flesh in the subject's face and the background is blown out. But this is not the case, looking at the subject being dressed quite romantically, a softer pose, and things like that. So then you have to go for a contrast between the model, the light on the model, and the background. So bring that background back so it stays more in the shadow, farther away, so the light doesn't hit it directly and it's not so bright. And so that will give you a depth in an image that will separate the subject from the background, and the focus will stay on the subject, and you will not see so much texture and so, like I said, so much presence of the background. So keep it away. In terms of the pose here, it feels like the model is leaning partially on the chair. The posture itself is not very confident. The shoulders are kind of going up. We don't see much of the neck. And also the way her arm is positioned on the table, it also seems quite uncomfortable. She's almost like sliding off the edge, and she's crossing her body with that elbow. So it's sort of like, crossing the body and protecting herself off the camera. So like turning away almost. So it doesn't feel comfortable and relaxed, as opposed to if she had the shoulder more out and, showing more of the neck, opening up instead of closing up. So these are my comments about this one. We have two more with this series, sort of with this light, where the photographer approached from a slightly different viewpoint. So Jerome is looking up at the model here. And I think a combination of a wide angle lens and that sort of more dramatic angle creates an unnecessary distortion. So if it was a fashion shoot and it was a model with maybe wider shot with a dress flowing or some dramatic pose when one foot is stepping towards the camera or something like that, so more dramatic movement sort of pose, then that wide angle lens in combination with a low vantage point would be justified. But a portrait, there's again, I think, the way the model is styled is more of a romantic sort of portrait or classic maybe portrait. In combination with this vantage point, just doesn't work. That distortion on the face and the body just doesn't make sense. So, and besides that angle, I still feel that the light doesn't work here. That combination of that harsh light being quite high, so bringing dramatic shadows here on the neck, here on the body, covering up also the beautiful outfit here. Quite uncomfortable pose, again, sort of protecting, crossing the body, doesn't work here either. Here as well, it's still not very comfortable, and too many shadows, too much confusion basically here. And again, the shadow in the background is quite distracting. So everything that you're placing in the shot should have a role in the story, in the composition, in revealing the character. So when there are too many overlapping details, it's becoming too confusing, and you don't know, and the viewer will not know what the story is about. So what you're trying to tell, why she's looking up like she's, romantically dreaming about something. At the same time, she's so tense and so close. What are you trying to say? And why the lighting is so dramatic here. Here she's smoking a cigar or something like that, and supposedly should be relaxed maybe, or thinking about something. So it's more of a very comfortable, should be a very comfortable moment of her smoking. So she's sort of not paying so much attention to the camera, and yet she's still very tense. That closed pose, shoulders going up like that, losing her neck, and all the shadows, they don't create all this relaxing, sort of comfortable and confident atmosphere. Now in the next shot, Jerome tried different lighting and different poses here with the model. So it's sort of a spotlight, right? Very focused light on the model. And I think what happened here in the shot on the left, the light instead of pointing at the face, is actually focused in the center here. So the shirt of the model became the center of attention, where it's supposed to be obviously a face. Also, her being so close to the background, again, caused the shadow being very big and close to her. So it's a very intense graphic element. Does it add anything to the story in this case? I'm not sure. Again, she's wearing white, clean, simple top, and then there's this big dramatic shadow next to her. Maybe what does this light tell us? It's that very dramatic spotlight, sort of theatrical. If it was maybe a very intense character with glamorous makeup, big red lip and very glamorously dressed, not a simple t-shirt or sort of like a simple top that is looking like a t-shirt. If it was a glamorous dress with some, accessory, jewelry and things like that. And then there's the spotlight and very intense, emotion, character. That would make sense to have the spotlight and even the dramatic shadow, sort of film noir kind of look and feel. But with the simple pose, sort of almost like headshot kind of pose when your arms are crossed and you're looking just straight at the camera, this light just doesn't make sense because it doesn't tell the right story. Also, the blue of the background, or this teal color rather, also doesn't bring a very justified point to the story. Why is it so intense to the point that it's so distracting from the model, right? In the shot on the right where she's holding this drill or something like that tool, when you're holding a tool or something that is sort of out of the context, in this kind of manner, when you hold it in a way that is so dominant in the shot, it's always going to look like an advertising shot, like you're showing it off to the camera, like, hey, I'm selling this to you as a viewer. If you want to make a point about something, like, for example, she's a delicate, soft young woman, but she has this tool, so she has that other side to her. Don't shove it into the viewer's face. Make it hold, in a very casual way, like she would be holding it, with a hand down. You can see my hands down, but in a way, if she was resting in the chair somewhere and just the drill was just casually hanging down in her hand off the chair, sort of like it's there but not really there. Randomly, why is she holding that tool while her face is very confident and relaxed, whatever she's doing there, but definitely not showcasing it to the camera. That would make a point, that juxtaposition of her character but having this tool in her hand. So I think you get the idea. Next shot. I think in this setting, with that, again, moody, dramatic light, I think finally the shot, sort of the expression and the pose, starts getting into the same mood as the light, as that dramatic, low-key, at the same time sort of setting. Again, the background is very bright. I would move the subject away, but I think the pose here and the way she looks at the camera works. Styling wise, I would move the hair away and put it back. The hair is a lot on the side and it covers up the nice details on the wardrobe. Again, every single detail has to tell the same story, has to have a meaning in the story. Why is the hair covering the wardrobe? Why isn't she wearing this nice detailed dress if it's all covered by the hair? You got the idea. Next one, where Jerome played with this very interesting light. And it's really amazing if you guys experiment and try different lighting ideas. But again, this has to be justified. If it's a very mysterious light that kind of, shows off partially the face, then there should be a mystery in that face. It should be it shouldn't be, it should be, justified. Why subject is very casually kind of looking away and smiling, and sort of that moment, when the light is so rigid, is so geometric, then the whole pose should be so calculated and go together with that spot of light. So, last example that I wanted to show you that also has the same lighting idea, but the pose is different. She's wearing something different as well, and the light is, not so much on the background as in the shot before, where it had that sort of diagonal line. Is more focused on the model. And what I like about this one, that she's looking straight at the camera and she's very real, very much herself, and I finally believe her. Like, she's finally not posing, not distracting, not looking away, not showcasing anything at the camera. She's just being herself. She's honest and open to the camera. And that light, how it's highlighting her face, I think it really helps here. The only thing I would maybe get rid of is the little spot in the background, and maybe I would like to maybe soften up the area here, so the focus is more on the face. I would maybe darken that spot, or maybe round up the edges and do something that looks a little bit more real rather than the very geometric sort of graphic light, because the pose is more of a natural rather than a glamorous kind of this setup graphic portrait and composition. So I would make it a little softer, a little bit more natural, that spot of light. But other than that, I think with the facial expression and her pose, it really works here. Well, I hope this review was helpful, and I know there's still a lot of questions left, how to style, how to pose it, and how to light. But if you stay with me, watch more of my reviews, I'm sure these ideas will become more and more clear to you. Please like and subscribe. All the links are in the description, and thank you for watching.